What's good, y'all, and welcome to another video. In this one, we'll be having a look at exclusive gear. So I'll be giving you all the information you need when it comes to who has exclusive gear, how does it work, and how can you best take advantage of it. So yeah, honestly, let's get straight into it. First off, there are currently two different types of exclusive gear. Number one is faction exclusive, and number two is hero exclusive. So you have gear for specific heroes and you have gear for specific factions. When we have a look at factions, there's actually three factions that have these faction specific gear. Number one would be the Northern gear, which has the bonus effect when deployed increase max HP by 10%. So nothing offensive, but also something really useful for any tank, especially when we're looking at the Northern faction. And then there's another trick, and that is it's two different sets. Set number one is the Cataclysm set, which states upon landing a crit hit with a basic attack increases the hero's damage by 9% for 5 seconds, so up to 45% if you can hit 5 basic attacks within 5 seconds. And the second set is actually the Tempered Will set, which gives 15% damage reduction, and for each enemy blocked it increases the defense, so pretty much one of the best tank sets you could be asking for, really. So those two are the sets that you're going to get for the Northern faction. Next up, we actually have the Curse faction. So the Curse faction has two DPS sets, with DPS set number one being when the ultimate is triggered, increases damage by 30% and crit damage by 40%, lasting for 8 seconds. So mainly used for heroes that get to their ultimate very fast and you really want to get like the most out of their ultimate. And the bonus is actually increases damage dealt to enemies inflicted with slow, stun, freeze, immobilize and other CCs by 10%, which is at the end of the day basically the standard Lord bonus plus another 10%. So for example, let's have a look at what Aeon looks like when we're talking standard Lords. Here we go. So Aeon's normal Lord bonus says we get 20% more to immobilize, stun, freeze, state, blah blah blah, and there we add another 10% on top of it, which is like really crazy, especially for what you're going to use it, which is mostly AoE mages. And then the second set is once again going to be Cataclysm. So here, no matter what, you're going to either get a Cataclysm piece or a Cursed Cult piece. You know what I mean. And then lastly, we actually have Watchers. So for all the Kigiri lovers out there, Watchers get increased damage dealt and healing effect by 8%, which is again once more basically improving upon an already existing Lord effect. But in general, it's free damage dealt as well as more healing effect, so it's perfect for dealers and healers. And there again you have two different sets. Set number one is this right here, Wings of Grace, healing effect plus 30 and increases the attack of the hero and the ally with the highest attack in range by 12%. So once more pretty strong and basically a better inspiration set. Or invigoration? You know what I mean, invigoration. And then lastly, once more, it is Cataclysm. So in all three you have a Cataclysm piece, and then you have a tank set, a healer/dealer set, a tank set, a healer set, and another dealer set. That is pretty much all you need to know about faction exclusives. But while we're already on the note of gear, before we get into like all the hero exclusive ones, because they're really interesting, let's have a look at how do these pieces even work. And for that, why don't we just go back to these pieces right here. So we've already sorted by only this hero's exclusive gear, and when we scroll down here you can see there's a lot of pieces, right? Because we obviously got a lot of pieces here to kind of show these stats off. And what you're going to notice is you always have the same main stat. For example, a Northern exclusive ring. It is always a ring. That's the important part. So the faction exclusive gear is always a ring, and then depending on what kind of character you have characters that have exclusive weapons, exclusive armor, exclusive bangles, exclusive amulets, or even also exclusive rings. So yeah, that's the important part. It's always a fixed slot that gets the gear, and then you have a fixed main stat. And rather than just a fixed main stat, for example, look at this piece, how beautiful it is. You let's just go to a couple of these pieces, and you should be able to notice a certain pattern. And yes, you are spot on. These pieces not only have a fixed position, being a ring, which is obviously the hardest piece to get, they have a fixed main stat and 2 fixed substats. You can see that these pieces always come with attack percent, crit rate, crit damage. Always attack percent, crit rate, crit damage. Which means if you get this piece, the only thing you need to make this piece top tier is basically attack speed as your last roll. So for example, you also have a couple great pieces with extra attack or extra rage region. But for example, right here you would have an ancient, and right here let's look to a couple of the other ones. Here we had attack threat and rage region. But even if you don't get attack speed on it, it is still a very, very good piece nonetheless, and also has the exclusive effect on top of it, as well as again being a tier 3 piece of a set that none of us were really able to make into something useful anyway. So yeah, that is the way this gear works. You always have fixed main stat, fixed 2 substats, and fixed slot where this piece fits. So for example, let's have a look at the tank here, and it's not always crit rate, crit damage. It's just crit rate, crit damage when it's beneficial to the hero. So let's have a look at this tank piece. This tank piece, for example, has HP percent, and then we have HP, defense, and attack. And if we then go to another one of these pieces, you'll see that you always kind of have the same HP flat, defense percent. So you always have HP flat, and defense percent, which already makes this a very, very good tank piece. Basically straight off the bat, especially combined with the extra max HP by 10%. Now then there's also a little bit of a different piece. Let me see if we can find it here. I think the best example is probably the Curse faction, and that's the fact that there's also crit damage main stat. And for those wondering, exactly, crit damage main stat equals attack percent and crit rate as the substats. So now that we've got this out of the way and how beneficial this gear actually is, let's get into the juicy part, and that is 18 different heroes who all have their own exclusive pieces. So let's take a look. Setram. So the interesting part about exclusive weapons is exclusive weapons are actually kind of broken. The reason why they're broken is if you take a look at, for example, this piece right here, you'll notice it has crit damage. Normally, outside of exclusive gear, you only find crit damage on a weapon if your weapon is ancient, right? You need an ancient mythic gear, or you won't be able to find crit damage on it. But for whatever reason, exclusive gear was like, nah bro, I don't need it. I'll win regardless, right? So yeah, for example, here we have attack percent, crit rate, crit damage, attack speed. So what does this actually do? It is Wicked Vengeance, which is a really, really good set effect, giving you more damage and more attack. It is basically your step up to come on, my brain not working at the moment. A step up to Annihilating Might. So basically you get 5% more crit damage and then 10% more attack. Overall, incredibly good. And I would say it even can compete with Warlord, depending on how good your substats actually are. But it is a massive crit damage boost and also an attack boost on top of it. So if you find a good piece, you are set. So yeah, on another set, let's get to Setram's effect. Increases damage dealt to shields by 20% when an Overlord state gains 10% penetration. Now, pretty much what you're getting is 70% extra damage against shields, so he gets a better passive. And then while in Overload mode, in his ultimate, which he enters rather fast, you actually get a 10% increased penetration, which means he ignores 10% of the enemy's defense, which is very, very good. So this Setram piece is pretty nice, at this point, if you're still watching, let me know in the comments if you would be interested in a tier list for exclusive gear. I think that could be quite fun. I think I'd probably make it regardless, but you can let me know what you think about it. Next off, we have Abomination. Abomination's exclusive effect, it's a bit weird here because he has a weird set, really. So he starts with the Astral Guardian set, which gives him more HP and more defense. So he kind of is already back into that more tanky, so either like full tank or bruiser mix, just because of the set piece. But the effect is, after casting Boundless Endurance twice, increases the chance of the basic attack triggering charge attack by 10% and boosts charge attack damage by 100%, which refers to his ultimate right here, where if you trigger it twice, he also increases his range. But now his trigger chance, let's actually let's do a bit of math here, right? So he gets a 10% increased chance to trigger this attack right here, which is deals damage to an enemy with a 15% chance to trigger a 120% AoE damage, and it turns into 220% AoE at 25% chance. Combined with the ultimate, you have a 25% chance per basic attack to also inflict stun. Might be very, very important for GVG. It's a bit hard to see how good it will be, but here's Iovar. For whatever reason, Iovar is the first Ancient Lord to have exclusive gear, and yeah, it is straightforward, super OP, good set. And then triggering Infinite Blade grants 30% damage increase for 5 seconds. For those that don't know what Infinite Blade is his ultimate. So if you trigger his ultimate, he just gets a 30% damage increase, which is absolutely nuts. It is absolutely ridiculous, and Iovar's exclusive gear is a must-have or must-aim for everyone that has a Iovar. Now at this point, it is important to note that there's two different categories, you could say, of exclusive gear. We had 12 different pieces that, or 12 different heroes that got theirs on launch of the exclusive gear system, and then we got 6 added. So the ones that are new are Iovar, Volka, Arrogance, Uredin, Khamet, and Zelus, and Shamir, I think. It might have been 7. Yeah, I think Shamir, Khamet, Silas, Iovar, Volka, and Uredin. It's 7. So there's a non-zero chance that we only get the other ones. So we might not get Iovar, Volka, Arrogance, Uredin, Khamet, Shamir, and Silas right now, but we'll get them later. We'll have to see. Okay. Next up, we have Volka. So Volka, again, beautiful set, beautiful even on the weapon, and straight up, increased crit rate by 15%, extends the duration of blood source and its vulnerability by 5 seconds, which means right here, this vulnerability lasts for 20 seconds. Easy. Straightforward, easy, and pretty solid. The cool part here is, even if your Volka weapon, for whatever reason, wouldn't have crit rate, or another scenario, you have a piece that is missing crit rate but you want to use it regardless, you have crit rate on your weapon, you have the 15% extra there, which should put you very close to actually already reaching like the 90-95% crit rate, even if you're missing crit rate somewhere else. So very nice for building, it's straight up nice and good effect, but nothing too game breaking. Now Arrogance. Arrogance actually has a right side piece, Cataclysm set, which works very well with Arrogance, especially with him having his A3 or A5 getting that increased attack speed boost for single target content, or for any Arrogance at any awakening for content where he can kill multiple units. So what it does is Hellfire skill cost minus 100, straight up, right? You straight up reduce the cost for his ultimate from 750 down to 650, which means you can use this, or basically he uses his awakening or his ultimate more often. Now, something that still needs to be tested and that I'll have a closer look at is it actually going to be better than the Soulborn Arcana set? It's hard to say. Probably for all of us that are like in the end game and have like really good Soulborn Arcana sets and really good gear in general, it probably will be hard. But for those that are still looking to make that jump into like the red gear to get the proper gear, it should definitely help and have an impact. Now, something else that has to be noted though is obviously it is the Cataclysm set. So you would have to also equip, my bad, you would also have to equip different pieces from the Cataclysm set. And this is where these Cursed Cult pieces actually come in clutch. Even though they have a Cursed Cult exclusive effect, nothing stops you, or the Northerner pieces for example, nothing stops you from equipping this one on an Arrogance. You're not going to get the set effect, but you still have a banger piece with banger stats. So this definitely makes gearing your characters with exclusive gear way easier. Alright, Arrogance, pretty standard, pretty straightforward. Now let's have a look at Valkyra. Valkyra, again, beautiful set, once more the weapon. And exclusive for Valkyra grants a stack of Sword of Victory, or basically every stack of Sword of Victory grants an additional 1% attack bonus. If we take a look at Sword of Victory, we have increased attack by 5% after every 14 seconds up to 8 times, and the effect lasts permanently. Now goes up to grants 6%, so overall you get 8% more attack out of Sword of Victory, which isn't nothing, but it also isn't anything too crazy. So if you can't put this into your build properly, then it isn't really all that much of a loss. Now we come to a bit of a controversial piece, and that's going to be Constance. So Constance actually gains nothing really much from the set, which is increased healing effect, increased rage regen. Seems nice, but you gotta keep in mind Constance is an inspiration hero, so you want your attack to be as high as possible, and what this exclusive only gives her is more rage regen and increased healing effect of basic attack. So unless you're using a hybrid Constance and you're not looking for the most inspiration, you're not going to use this piece, because normally you would just go with, for example, a Warlord set, so you can get more attack out of her. So it's a bit of a weird choice, picking the Constance breastplate with the healing effect and the rage regen, but it also would be kind of weird for them to pick the Wicked Vengeance set. It's hard to say, but overall hers is pretty meh. Next, but also you gotta keep in mind, you can definitely give Constance the WorGuides exclusive. That's still a bonus. Then we have Silas. For all those that were wondering, oh, why is my Silas so weak? My Silas needs better gear. There you go. Silas has exclusive gear, and his exclusive gear actually does something very interesting. And also you can get broken pieces like this. It is once more the same, attack percent plus crit rate plus crit damage, and then you just kind of gotta hope that you get lucky. And let's see if we can actually find the biggest problem with exclusive gear. That is, these rolls could be kind of mid, so you might actually have to artificially make them work in a sense. So for example, we would have to go to Foundry, recast, Ring, Silas, and then recast them with Recast Hammer, or even refine. We could technically refine it. I don't know if that would be worth it though. You would only be spending one of the greens, and you could get something useful out of it. So keep in mind, you might have to use your refine resources there to really get that perfect piece. Enough of that. What does it do? It increases damage of soul sniping to 160%. So basically, soul sniping standard does 140% damage that ignores 50% of the target's defense, and now it does 160%. So overall it is a damage increase of 1/7 of whatever that is. Come on, math, don't disappoint me. It's like a 15% damage increase. And then that also obviously multiplies with everything else. If you can make this set work, it is pretty good, but there is one issue, and that is the fact that it is Hell's Lament set, so he's only going to get the increased damage and increased crit damage for the first 8 seconds out of the 20 seconds. I do feel like they kind of have to revisit this whole Hell's Lament concept and maybe increase the duration from like 8 to 15 seconds. Okay, next up we have Uredin. Uredin can again equip 2 pieces, one being the Curse Cult piece and then the other being his exclusive. It is once more a weapon, and what it does is it increases his rage regen auto, so from 12 to 15, as well as allowing Phantom Strike and Soul Harvest to deal 30% extra damage one time. So Phantom Strike is deal 180% damage to at most 10 enemies, and Soul Harvest is now 150% damage one time and 120% damage one time to at most 10 enemies, I believe. That's kind of the way it reads. So Salazar actually has a amulet, and this is also kind of the way these pieces come together in a sense. And that is, if we take a look at Hell's Lament, you see that we have a Hell's Lament bangle from Salazar that has attack percent. We have a Hell's Lament ring from Silas. We have a Hell's Lament ring from Khamet. And we have a Hell's Lament ring, a Hell's Lament bangle from Silas Khamet, and a Hell's Lament ring from the Cursed faction. So even just through exclusive gear alone, you would be able to build a decent enough Hell's Lament set. So now back to the task at hand, and that is Salazar's exclusive gear. So the way you can kind of see it here is Salazar's exclusive gear actually has attack percent, crit damage and attack speed, and what you're going to be needing to look for in a subset is going to be, in this case, attack. And there's also somewhat of an interesting reason for that, and that is that it coincides with, for example, Boiling Bloodlight here, which states that if the target is bleeding, his second attack will always be a crit, and also if the target is bleeding, all the skills, all the hits of the skill guarantee a crit. And I guess it also works well enough with the A5, which means even all his basic attacks don't need any crit rate. But what it does is increases the number of slashing blitzes strikes by 2. So straight up, Salazar's most useful ultimate, the biggest burst damage in the game, or the fastest burst damage in the entire game still, even after launch, now does 8 strikes instead of 6. So you're going to get a grand total of 7 times 300%, so 2100%, and then 380% on the last strike, which means 2480% damage through a single ultimate, which might be able to put Salazar back on the menu when it comes to even the highest scores on APOC 2 or Guild Boss 1. So yeah, that's Salazar's. Now Khamet. Khamet, again, weird set choice for an ultimate that takes exactly 20 seconds. So yeah, Hell's Lament again. Salazar is really fast in getting his ultimate is really short, so he is one of those characters that do actually benefit from Hell's Lament, in comparison to Khamet, whose ultimate is 20 seconds long, which means Hell's Lament will only be active for around half of it. But what it does is Khamet now regenerates 15 rage per second instead of 14, and his ultimate damage multiplier gets increased by 20%. It is hard to say if it is really only a 20% increase, so from 400 to 420%, which seems likely, or something ridiculous like a additional 1.2x multiplier, which would mean he would do 480% damage rather than 400%, so plus 20%. It's a bit weird to see, but it's most likely going to be 420, and it's a decent piece, and it might help all of us earlier brethrens out, but for us old hogs, old heads, it's not really gonna do a whole lot. Now Shamir has an amulet that gives attack speed guaranteed with, you can see, attack percent and crit rate, or attack percent and crit damage. It kind of swaps, and what it does is when dealing damage with ultimate, reduces the target's magic resistance by 20% for 5 seconds. So it kind of plays into that support type. So Shamir really is going to be a different Mary now, with additional magic resistance reduction rather than magic vulnerability. So you could also run Shamir and Mary at the same time, but he really is, again, it's always like you either take a Mary or you take another DPS mage, or you take a greed. Shamir never really has that place, but it might change with this exclusive equipment. Next up we have Helga. Helga is in the Cataclysm set, so a really good set for her, especially because she basic attacks really fast, and her basic attacks hit 3 times, which should count for this Cataclysm set. So Helga is one of the characters that can benefit the most from it, and you're always going to get attack percent and crit rate, so the only thing you would need to look for in a substat would be right here, crit damage. And what it does is attack speed plus 30, straight off the bat, even more attack speed. So if we take a look at a full upgraded piece, you're going to get 250 attack speed from a single piece, and it increases Quill Storm's damage by 30%. So now every 8 times you do damage to the same target in ultimate, you do not do 120, you do 150% damage. And then this also works again with boosting her ultimate, because her ultimate needs lower attack interval, higher attack speed, lower attack interval, more damage, more good. Then we have Vierna. Vierna is also one of those characters that is really good in the Cataclysm set if you're attacking multiple characters, because she shoots out her hand and then it starts spinning around. So she's always going to be able to get a reasonable damage boost out of it. And especially if she targets like 2 characters at the same time and they start spinning, so she's going to be able to do a whole lot with it. And if you take a look at this effect is an absolute menace. Increases damage of her ultimate by 100% and the execution threshold by 10%. It is an absolute menace. So you're going to get 1000 AoE damage, as well as a execute at 45% or below, which is basically half health. It is incredibly strong, and also you are going to get access to a Cursed Cult Ring. You can equip the Cursed Cult Ring, and all of a sudden you're doing even more damage. Even more 10% damage straight on top. And the best part about a Vierna is this piece is already perfect. This piece is already perfect, and this piece is perfect too, because as we all know, Vierna cannot actually do basic attacks, or in a sense her basic attacks can't be sped up by attack speed, which means Vierna is one of the easiest to give a good set to, because it's a good set effect that always works, that is super strong and has a super strong effect. Vierna is going to become basically the strongest AoE mage in the entire game. I think she should be able to overtake Khamet with this exclusive gear. Next up we have Torodor. Torodor, straight off the bat, 30% HP, 15% defense. When deployed, increase HP by 10%, increase the chance of triggering Atrocious Trample by 5% when attacking, and doing the ultimate increases the chance by an extra 10%. So what are we looking at? We're looking at a set that is perfect for Torodor, with HP and defense always as the substats, and getting 10% post-deployment HP bonus. And then we have Atrocious Trample. Atrocious Trample is pretty much Torodor's crowd control. So he has a 30% chance to launch an AoE attack that stuns. And now you have 5% more with the exclusive, so a 35% chance. And when Hellfire Burning, so his ultimate is active, he increases the attack, the trigger chance again. I believe it's doubling, so maybe not. It's hard to say how much it does, but it's between probably 15 and 30%. So it's either 45% or 60%, and then you get an additional 5% for it being in an ultimate. So in an ideal world, if everything skates the way it's supposed to, you have a 70% chance to trigger Atrocious Trample and the stun on every single attack. So yeah, absolutely ridiculous. Next up we have Zelus. Zelus, once more, same scenario with Vierna. One of the easiest characters to make use of for this exclusive gear, because he doesn't need attack speed and he can majorly benefit from the Cataclysm set effect. Now, what does the ultimate do? Extends the ultimate duration by 10 seconds. During the ultimate, each enemy that dies in range increases Zelus damage by 1% up to 20 times. So overall what you're getting is a 100% increase in ult duration for Silas' ultimate. Pretty good, and if you combine it with the fact that it's easy to build and easy to use, it is definitely going to take Silas out of that kind of like disgusted trash tier and into something really useful. And furthermore, if you equip his exclusive artifact, you get the 15% damage increase straight off the bat, so really good. And you also reduce the enemy's healing by 45% for 20 seconds. So whenever the boss does his healing wave or the healing field, it's always going to be 45% weaker. We all know it's not anti-heal, but it is nothing, it's still not nothing, basically. Now we have Morrigan. For Morrigan you get again a banger, and what it does is reduces Curse Pack's effect activation time by 20 seconds, and after Curse Pack takes effect increases the damage rate by an additional 15%. So the effect right here is this one, Curse Pack, which takes 40 seconds for 30% more damage. Now it's 20 seconds for 45% more damage, and I can already see all these GVG enthusiasts salivating over Morrigan now that she is finally relevant again. So yeah, Morrigan is pretty solid, pretty strong, but also has the additional effect of you needing to find a couple better pieces, because you really do want that attack speed on her. So you would also have to look for a piece like this. Let's see if we can make this into something useful. We can, because it's again, these pieces are kind of the reason why you're keeping your unidentified gear, because if you can get something like this that even has a variant which deals increased damage to enemies inflicted with stun, freeze, immobilize state, and curse by 5%, and you combine it with this effect, and you combine it with the set effect, and you combine it with good stats, you get really nice pieces. And now, last but not least, the cherry on top, Dolores. So Dolores' piece is pretty interesting. You either have rage regen and healing effect, pretty much you only have rage regen and healing effect as the main stat, and you have to hope for attack flat in the substat, because no attack flat means you would be screwing yourself over royally when it comes to the inspiration effect. Now what does it actually do? Healing effect plus 10, so nothing much but a bit more healing, and increases the chance of rage regen from Merciful Beauty by 20%. So Merciful Beauty is right here a 80% chance with the A5 into a 100% chance, which means every time Dolores leaves her ultimate, she has her ultimate ready again in the right comp, which is pretty impressive. But yeah, basically you're always going to get 30% extra rage every time you leave the ultimate. Pretty straightforward, pretty overpowered, and yeah, this piece is what cements Dolores as the strongest inspiration unit in the entire game. Even if Beelzebub comes out, you need him at least A3 to be on a comparable level to the amount of times Dolores can do her ultimate. So the uptime of Dolores is crazy high with this new piece. Alright, so these were all the exclusive artifacts in the game for every single hero with every single effect. I hope I was able to explain everything properly. If you found this helpful and you stayed till the end of the video, feel free to leave a like, consider subscribing, and leave a comment. We see each other in the next one. Peace out. Bye bye.